Record. Okay, here we are. I'm also just going to quickly check Facebook, make sure everything's up and running. Here we go. Yes, okay, well, all good. So, welcome everybody to She's of Love. This episode, well, actually, I should first address Mum will be joining. She's just running a bit late, so she's going to be here in just a couple minutes. But today we're joined by Rachel Rich, which is always a pleasure. I'm always so honored and so excited when you come on. I mean, I say it every time, but I really do mean it. And um, I guess you've just been like a massive supporter of me and Mum since basically the very, very beginning. And I don't know, I feel like a very deep connection with you, and I always feel so honored to have you on and have you as such a big part of the journey of She's of Love, especially now that we have 100,000 followers in our group, which is insane. Like that's a stadium full of people, a massive stadium full of people. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so thank you for being with us and always commenting and always watching and um, being a part of this journey with us. So yeah, thank you.
No, thank you. And thank you for welcoming me in such a beautiful way. Yeah, thank you, Juliet.
Oh, no, my pleasure. So today's topic is a very big one, and it's about personal power and boundaries. And I think this is something that everyone deals with or comes across every single day. Like it's such a big part of our lives. And I think actually in every single moment we have a choice to choose personal power um, or not.
Mm.
So I guess I want to hand over the mic to you, and yeah, you just take this wherever you want, and I'll follow you along.
Yeah, it's a like you said, it's a big juicy one to lean into. And as I was sort of reflect on that and my personal journey, I see, if I stand here and turn around and look back, I can see how far I've come with that.
Mm,
And I can also feel how much I'm still learning and how much, you know, how much further I do have to go into being, truly empowered and knowing all of my boundaries, because it's not just, if I think about my own journey and where it starts within the family, it's sort of just you sort of just think about it as in and around that, but it is so multidimensional, multi-layered. It, like you said, it's so bigger than what we can even put words to,
yeah,
truly.
yeah.
And it's so paradoxical as well.
Mm,
Of the day, we're putting out, we're stating boundaries, or we're feeling into our personal empowerment, but also when you really zoom out and at the end of the day, and if you go beyond all of the other woo-woo stuff, it's all you.
yeah,
It's all you.
yeah,
So, so it can be, there's so many directions that this conversation can go
yeah.
in those terms. Yeah.
I think when you mentioned paradoxical, I think I've brought this up on the podcast before, but I want to bring it up again because it's coming up for me. And it's about how I watched this video just on my Instagram reels. I was just scrolling, and this guy came up and he was talking um about how he was talking at a conference, and someone asked him, "I'm a bit distrustful. How do I gain trust with myself?" And he says, "You can't be distrustful. You can't not have trust. You always have trust. But what you're saying here is you are trusting the distrust. When you don't trust something, you are trusting that you don't trust it. And I think that it speaks to this topic of personal power, of we all have this well of power within us. We all have this limitless field of power, and we have trust, we have commitment, we have every quality that we all dream of having. We all have it within us. But if you lack confidence, you're confident that you're not confident, or
Mhm.
you have power, but you are putting your power in the belief that you don't have power, but you still have that power. You're just choosing where to put it. And I
Mhm.
think that as humans, especially in society and how it's built, with, all this um, negative messaging and social media and everything, and it latches onto us all from children, it convinces us of this paradox, that it's not a paradox, that it's real, that, oh, you aren't good enough, or giving us all the foundations to build this horrible cycle within ourselves, and to give our power to you know, the negative thought or the negative pattern. And I guess that's what comes to me when you were talking.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is such a big, massive, like, just topic in general of boundaries and power, and like I don't even know, it is huge, but that's just what came to me.
Yeah, yeah. And just stepping into, knowing yourself just that little bit more each and every day, because it truly is a journey of, like you said, we're born, it's all within us. And
Yeah.
it's those societal layers and conditioning and beliefs that are coming in from all directions that we are taught to believe that. So it's unraveling and constantly remembering and coming back to bringing,
Mm,
that empowerment back to you each and every day. And I don't know, it's a full-time job. It
mm,
really, it really is. And when you start to realize that that is what we're here for, is to truly remember and truly embody all of it, all of
yeah.
it here and there. Yeah.
I think, um I really find value in spending my time creating habits, journaling, bettering myself, whatever that means, improving on myself. And I think I've put it as such a priority in my life, that I and I'm also, in a position where I don't have kids, I don't have family, I don't have anything tying me down. So it makes it a lot easier for me than it would for most people. But yes, there are times where I am like, actually, I need a few months off of working, and I'm gonna just work on myself. And that's gonna be my full-time job. And because I have the position to do that, that's what I do. And that's part of traveling for me, is empowering myself and choosing to, I don't know, choose the path of love. And sometimes that means not working and sitting down in a place, or going out to Scotland, riding my bike, and choosing to do that. And I think in society, that's like such, um even just saying that out loud right now, as you know to myself, I'm like, oh, I'm so lazy, I'm so this, I'm so that, like, but it's that's such,
Whose beliefs are they? Whose beliefs are they?
yeah,
Where did
not mine.
they?
Yeah, yeah. And I really, there are times where I do really struggle in my unconventional path, because it is a very unconventional life that I live, and it's hard to relate to a lot of people. Or actually, I can relate to a lot of people. I think people can't relate to me so much. And, I always have questions of, oh, so what are you studying? Or is this your gap year? Or, what do you want to do? And this and that. And I find myself morphing my answers and my real true self to mold into their questions. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm traveling for
Where
a
they've
bit.
pigeonholed you, yeah, into all of the
Yeah,
where you could be at your age doing, it's
yeah,
pigeonholed. And then we tend to, like you said, twist ourselves into an answer that we think they want to hear
mm, yeah,
to make
exactly.
that conversation flow. And that's when we realize, I'm not being true to myself in that moment, you
Mm,
know, because again, we also worry about how people are going to perceive us.
yeah. I think it's yeah, it is inauthentic to who I am, and I'm not giving authentic answers a lot of the time because I don't want it to be um an uncomfortable conversation. There is this part of me that just wants to say, no, I'm I'm not studying anything and just like leave it at that and just like, yeah, and just like not go into it because it honestly anytime I meet someone, it's that same question. Are you studying? Or
Mm.
what do you want to do? Or where do you want to go in life?
I'm,
What are you doing
I'm studying
after?
me.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
being.
studying. Yeah, exactly. And I think, it's important. I think self-love and learning about yourself and learning how to empower yourself is like how you become a successful human. It's not about how you become successful at your job, it's how you become successfully you. And I think it's kind of, yeah, lost by a lot of people. And choosing, I don't know, I think choosing self-empowerment can be a really hard, oh, here comes mum. Yeah, it can be a really hard dilemma because, yeah, you're constantly fighting the world that tells you no, you shouldn't be, yeah, you shouldn't be doing that. But there's this part of you always calling out to want to do it.
Yeah.
So it's like a constant battle, with the world.
It's really the world telling
Hello.
you, good morning, Claudia.
Hey, sorry about that. Okay, you guys
Oh, good.
keep going and I'll just slot in.
Yeah. Well, we're just kind of in the part of we obviously know the topic, but we're just kind of
Yeah,
talking about the battle between choosing yourself and choosing empowerment or choosing um what society says. That's kind of where we're at. Yeah.
yeah,
Rachel, you were about to say something,
And
so
we-
I'll let
and we're constantly unpacking ourselves.
you.
That's what I see. So we're constantly, yeah, unpacking who we think we are, who our families wanted us to be, or who our workplace wants us, how they want us to perform. And so we're constantly unpacking the layers of that.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
100%. Yeah, and I think that's an important distinction too, because as we move forward and as we change, we are getting to know ourselves again.
Mm.
So
And
the more we change, the more we learn and the more we grow, um, the the more we're getting to know ourselves. I saw a meme actually yesterday that hit home, really hit me. And it was, hey, I'm getting to know myself in the moment with you. You're getting to know me. I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth. It's like we're getting to know me at the same time
yeah.
because
Yeah.
I don't know what's coming, and it's
Yeah.
true. I think that when we are the more conscious we become, the more we are changing and the less we
Mm,
know ourselves. And that's like this dichotomy where the less we know ourselves, the more we get to know ourselves. So it's like
mm,
this, you know, double-edged sword. We don't know where we're going. We don't know what we're going to end up into. We know where we want to go, but that, you
Think we
know,
want to, where we think we want to go.
yeah,
mm,
intellectually, we think we know the path. We think we know where we want to end up and who we want to be. But then as you know, Juliet, walking the path and knowing the path are two different things.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
think um one thing that comes to mind is I was watching this video, and it was talking about how, when we're in those meditations of, like, you close your eyes and it's like, imagine your dream life, you're living your dream. What do you feel? What do you see? Blah, 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 blah. And it feels incredible. That feeling feels amazing, and exactly everything's perfectly lined up in this like vision. But at the end of the day, at this point in time, when you're sitting on your bed trying to manifest your dream life, that is a vision of perfection, but it's not
Mm.
real, and that's why it's perfect. It's not. You're going to get there 5 years from now. You do manifest it, but you get there and it's like, I'm so proud of myself, I got here, but it's not perfect, and it never will be. The journey will not be perfect, but yet it's still worth it. And, like, you know there's so many times where Scotland was one of those things where I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have the best time, this is gonna be amazing. I was dreaming it, I was making vision boards, and then I got out there and I really struggled. And at the time I was like constantly questioning, why on earth am I doing this? But
Yes.
then yeah, but it really, it was what I needed. It was the medicine that I needed. And then now I'm back, I'm chilled out, and I want to go back. I would love to do it again. Like, I genuinely would, and I mean that wholeheartedly. But while I was out there, I was like wanting to ride off straight off a cliff. I was ready to just be done. And I never did, of course. But yeah,
Well, obviously.
obviously I'm still here. But yeah, it was a really big struggle. And it was never what I imagined it to be. And I think that's the same with self healing and self empowerment. It's never going to be a fun feeling all the time. It's not going to be like, yeah. So,
Mm. And what's
Yeah, and
true
I
for you
think,
today is not necessarily true for you tomorrow. And
mm,
you've just that. So my truth today could be that, my belief in and around a certain thing is this. And then my experiences over the next couple of days could totally flip that. And so what's true
yeah,
for me a couple of days' time is not what was true for me back here. So, and we're constantly adjusting to that vibrational frequency of what each experience is bringing us.
mm,
yeah, so
yeah.
true.
And I think that's why you need to connect to the core values, or the core, um, I guess, reasons of, you know, self-empowerment. Why do you want to empower yourself? I know I struggle a lot of the time with committing to something. Like, okay, I want to get to a point where I feel fully empowered in my being. Well, that's a big statement, and that's going to take years. And as you know, we are always changing, we are always morphing. Every day is not going to feel the same. There are going to be some days I want to give up completely, and there are going to be other days that I'm enjoying every moment. But I think the way to be consistent is to connect with, like, figure out core reasons, core feelings, core goals. And then, when you're feeling at your lowest points, you can connect to those core values and be
Yeah,
like,
so true.
okay, I know I really want to give up, but these are the core values and they still feel important. So I'm going to do this. Or when something changes, the core goals will always stay, like, strong, and no matter what else around it changes or how you change.
Yes. Juliet,
Yeah.
oh my God, you're sometimes like you blow me away. You're 21, and knowing that is so important. Knowing
Yeah.
that when the chips are down and you feel like crap and you don't know where you're going, you don't know how you got there, you're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
How did I get in this situation? And having that foundation, those core values, that, personal
Yeah.
why you're doing something, why you're here, to remember that in that moment, the why and the values that you hold dear to yourself, that's the secret sauce.
Yeah.
Because you can pull when the chips are down and you feel so defeated, or you're wondering how you got there. That's the secret sauce. That's what you go back to give you the last little bit of energy that you need to get yourself out of that situation, that pit of despair that you're in,
Mm.
or that depression, or whatever it is that you're feeling in that moment. That's the ladder that
Yeah.
you need to get yourself out of the pit.
Yeah.
And for you to know that at your age is like, I'm your
Incredible.
mom and I'm still like, oh my God, I
Well,
can't believe she knows that.
I know, but I say it. I don't always like, I say it for myself a lot of the time, and I don't always like do it.
I know, but it took me a long time. Like, and I'm still learning it now. I didn't know that at your age. I was just winging it every situation. I
Yeah.
didn't have the ladder. I was over time building that ladder to
Yeah.
the age that I am now.
Yeah.
I didn't have that knowledge. I didn't have that insight. I didn't have that ladder inside me. And I would get to the pit and I'd be like, how did I end up here again? You know what I mean? And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, where's my ladder? I need to get out of this.
Mm.
And I was sometimes would spend, if not days, weeks down in that pit trying to
Mhm.
figure out how to get out of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes somebody would come and, throw me a rope and I'd get out that way, or I didn't have the wherewithal within me to do it for myself. And you can sit in the pit, Juliet. That's your choice. Everybody has that choice to sit in the pit and feel sorry for themselves for as long as they want,
Yeah.
right? But eventually I've got what it takes to build that ladder to get out of there.
Mm.
I didn't have that knowledge. And I think going back to your core values is such an important part. It's a rite of passage of growing up. It's how you practice doing it and getting yourself out of it. You know what I mean? And it's messy. It's going to be messy. It's going to be shit at times. It's going to be hard. It's going to be exhausting. You're going to be sitting in that pit and you're going to be putting those pieces together for the ladder, and you're going to be going, I hate doing this. I hate the fact that I'm here again. But your experience is going to be very different to what it was for me, because I didn't have the skills and the knowledge that you have.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's what I'm commenting on.
Well, Claudia, some of those ladders we had to build were from IKEA flat packs that didn't have really good instructions. And
Oh, 100%.
Mm. Yeah.
And I'm so I'm so proud of you, and I'm so happy that you have that knowledge, because I don't think I necessarily gave you that knowledge. I think you worked it out for yourself. And
Yeah, well, I worked it out. Well, you definitely helped, but you learn stuff like that by going out and being
mm,
rawly yourself, like what I'm doing.
yes.
Like that's how you learn it. I think that's, you know, being out in Scotland and doing what I did on that bike, it was so ultimately raw, and I felt like everything I did was would cut me or scrape me, it would hurt. It was like I was I was really raw out there, and it was a very like stripped. I was stripped of everything, and I had to figure out. It was honestly what there was a level of survival there because
Yeah.
I was by myself and I had to camp, and I was riding my bike and I had to stay on the side of the road and not get run over. And there was all
Yeah.
this stuff, and you kind of learn these things um while you're out there. I didn't know it at the time it was coming back, that it's all kind of come to me,
Yeah, it's
and
all clicked in.
it's all clicked in, yeah. And I
Yeah.
think it's not something, yeah, I think you planted the seeds. I think being spiritual planted the seeds. I think um yeah, I don't know.
Self-awareness.
Yeah, yeah. And I think actually I wanted to ask you, Rachel, this question came to me um because this is quite a broad subject of self-empowerment and um boundaries. What is to like narrow it down to a kind of a point, what is something that you're doing now, your main focus now, um, for empowering yourself and placing boundaries as well? What is something that you're doing currently?
Yeah, really good question. So for me, I have an alarm set on my phone for every few hours for me to check in with myself. So it's like a self check-in, and like, where am I? It goes off at 12 o'clock every few hours. So I think it's one at 10, 12, 3, 6, and 8. So just randomly got them set on my phone as a self check-in, and just to check where I am, wherever that may be when I hear it and when it comes up. What does my body need right now? What do I need right now? Am I okay? Is there something I'm moving through? Is there something that, do I need to sit down and journal something out? Do I need to put some music on and feel something out? Let some energy flow that way. And also when people are perhaps inviting me to things, it's really, again, stop and check in, because the old parts of myself would just automatically respond and react in like, oh yeah, sure, okay, yeah, because I wanted to be liked, so without even thinking about what some of the consequences of accepting that invitation might be. So now it's a really, it's checking in with myself, and you know there might be a smaller part, like a inner child part of me, that wants that invitation, but then, if I go through the layers, there's truly a part in there that says, no, that's not right for me right now, and to honor that. So um yeah, like I said in the beginning, I can see how far I've come in learning personal and energetic boundaries, but as also I can see, wow, how far we've still got to go, and and like bringing it all back to, we all have a choice, but it's learning and knowing in that, making that choice, because there is no right or wrong, really. When
Yeah,
you boil it down, there is no right or wrong. There's choices and experiences, and if I'm having, like, I had a couple of nights ago where I had a full-on panic attack that come on to the point where I felt I was having an experience, and I'd been to the craniosacral therapist earlier in the day, and so there was a lot of stuff that come up in and around the heart. And if you know my story, I have a heart condition, and my dad died young from a heart condition. So there's that story that's been playing
mm,
out, and I could feel something really intense, some big childhood memories that sort of come through that, and I could feel the terror moving through my body, and it was a part of me that just needed to be held. And I actually had to call my daughter in, and as frightening as it was for her to hold me in that space of being, she thought I was going to die. Like, she said, "Are you asking me to hold you because you're about to die?" And then seeing her be terrified by that, but all I could do is ask her to hold me, just hold me. I'm getting emotional now because, again, it was bringing back a memory of, and and I don't even, I think it was this life, but also probably it would all hit so fast that my heart was beating so fast that I actually thought it was going to stop, and I thought that this was my moment. And this is the first time I've spoken about it, apart from my daughter and I. We haven't. So this has just come up for a reason. And because there was a part of me that just thought, no, just, you can get through this, just be on your own and work through it. But it was so intensely moving through my body that I actually had to call out to her. And I was very calm when I said, I'm having an experience and I just need you to come and hold me. So that was pretty massive for her to take on that as well, And so since then I have been processing that, and it's because there's so many layers to it as well. And I can't even remember how we diverted into that, but there was a place that I was going.
The
Juliet asked you
question,
how you um show up for yourself and give
Yeah,
yourself.
moving through, personal boundaries or
Yeah.
needs and choices at the time. So, now I am also working through, in making that choice and how that has brought distress to my daughter, because now she's scared of, am I gonna not wake up in the morning? Like
Yeah.
it's so massive. I know within myself now, as I've been processing that it was like a huge unlayering, because while I was on the table with having my session, there was a lot of layers that were opening up through the heart, but it was an intense release at the time that yeah. So so for me now, in this last few days, it's been very secular. So it's me coming and protecting, putting boundaries around my space, my energy at the moment, because I'm a little bit fragile. I'm a little bit, still working through that. But at the same time, like sitting here just before I came on, and my daughter says to me, "Are you going to actually do anything with your life, Mum? Like, the stuff that you believe in, and, it doesn't look like you're actually doing much." And I actually sat there, and the old me would have responded in a way that was probably a bit more passive aggressive, but I actually sat with that, and I said to her, I acknowledge what you're saying, and I can see how you could think that way or see it that way. But there is a lot of healing that's going on. And, the path that I've walked has been very traumatic. And I said, and my busyness and, in having a career and being a single parent and all of these things that I'm feeling and moving through now, we're always just kind of adding more layers to me truthfully finding that power within me. So,
Mhm.
and trying to explain it to her, who she's just sort of like, just wanted a quick yes or no answer. And she says, okay, well, get back to doing what you're doing on your computer. But it just, again, will now brings another layer for me to sort of question for myself as I move forward, throughout this day, because every day is a new journey, right? So yeah, yeah. So it's ongoing. It doesn't stop. It's checking in constantly with the self and giving myself permission to do that, because I had never allowed myself up until recently to do that.
That's a
yeah.
lot. It's a lot. Like what you're talking about is being aware, just being aware that that your process is to check in with yourself every few hours with that alarm on your phone is so self-aware.
Mm.
It's so in touch, really. I don't know anybody who does that. I don't do that. And I think that's a lot. I think that's a lot. And your daughter asking you that question, that's a lot too. For her to have asked you something like that means that she's so in touch with your journey and what you're doing. And she's seeing a disconnect between what she thinks your journey should look like and what it actually looks like, which is what we're talking about here. I mean, it's perfectly fits into the conversation. And she like coming to the awareness, and when you were talking, what was going through my head was our journeys don't have to look big on the outside for them to be
Mm.
so deep and meaningful.
Yeah,
Mic
Yeah.
drop. Yeah.
exactly.
That's what went through my head when you were speaking. A lot of the time in society, we look at people like celebrities, we look at people, raising money. I mean, Bob Geldof came into my brain the other day, and how he did that whole feed the world thing in the 80s, and how big that was, how huge it was. I mean, it touched everybody. And the generations speak about it now, songs came out of it, so much money was raised, all this awareness happened. But that was a huge journey. Our journeys don't have to look like that to have as much impact, because when you are working on yourself, when you are doing that inner, the sacral, cranial sacral thing that opened up in you and brought that huge experience into your body, that was something releasing in you. It could have been generations old, it could have been lifetimes old, and something unlocked in your body and came out of that.
Yeah.
And
And
you,
it started with the tongue as she was
yeah,
working.
right.
Saw my tongue being, it was like my tongue was twisted and it kind of spiraled down, and it felt like it was uncoiling and it was spiraling down my throat, and it felt like it was sewn into the back of my throat where it couldn't be free, right? And then from there it was like two snake tails. I don't know, this is just what I'm seeing while I
Yeah.
was on the table. That after it was coiled and sewn to the back of my throat, went down my spine and hooked into my scapulars, both
Mm.
shoulder blades, right? And I could feel all of that unraveling. So if, as we're speaking about personal power and empowerment and boundaries, and for the most of this lifetime and probably other lifetimes where I've been told I was wrong or shut down, and we haven't spoken that truth. And so in
Yeah.
this, and then there was all the heart stuff as well. So, and as that's all unraveling within me at that point in time, it was, 10 o'clock at night. And I thought, oh, I don't want to bother my daughter. She's got to get up in the morning. But the intensity of it was, and I don't know, the voice in my higher self or my true core aspects, was saying, call Taryn. And I had a lot of stuff to do in and around my dad as well. So it was all multi-layered, but and just be held in that moment. And I wouldn't have spoken that because of the way that I had been um,
Yes.
trained in staying silent
Yes.
and not impacting someone else, And so,
Yeah.
of course, I've spoken to the way that now they're in that experience, how that impacts her and what she decides to do and how she chooses to carry that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
as a mother, and and it was very cathartic in the way of two, because, and I noticed earlier when you were speaking with Juliet about her self-awareness and how you feel that you hadn't instilled that in her, and I felt
Yes.
much the same. Like there was a lot of this, and there was, I guess, there was a lot of mother stuff coming up as well in and around my own mother and how I've mothered my daughter. So it was such a profound, there was so much happening in this one moment, and all I could focus on was her holding me and keeping my breath as calm as possible, even though my heart was racing and I felt like I was not going to be of this world for much longer. Like it was
Yeah.
really seriously, well, what was that? So, but I think it was a shedding and an up leveling, and now this time is just being used to bring me, to allow more of me to enter into the
Mm.
space now created.
I think,
Yeah. And
oh,
sorry,
sorry,
Juliet, I just have to say this because I
all
think
good.
it's really important to speak to this part of what you went through and what you're experiencing now, that mothering doubt that you have, because a lady came in and was talking to me into my work, and she was talking to me about her children, and she had adopted siblings, and she was buying something for the siblings to commemorate 12 months of being with their family. And in this conversation that she was talking about, it came out, something huge came out of that conversation for me. And that was she was talking about herself and comparing herself to her sister, who her sister had, or it was either her sister or a cousin or someone in her family. And this person had a lot of money, a lot of money. She had money too, but the way she had chosen to raise her adopted children and the way this other person was choosing to raise their children was very different. And the way she was raising her kids was that they had to work for things, and she wasn't just handing things over to them left, right, and center. Whereas this other person in her family was raising her children in the way that they got everything. They had money and they just shared it with their kids. And the children grew up thinking like they rejected wealth. Her children rejected wealth. They rejected, though they were some of them were living on farms. They were, getting their hands dirty in the dirt because the way they were raised was so traumatic to them that they had totally and utterly rejected it. And I said, wow, that's so interesting. That what made you decide that you wanted to raise your children different? Because for me, I wasn't raised with money. And so I would have thought, you know, handing my children everything would be like the least I could do. And I would be doing it with gusto, right? I'd be giving it to them and I'd be saying, go and have this money and do what you want with it and live your life. Well, she said, when you decide to do that, and this was the huge part of it for me, she said, I didn't want to rob my children of the feeling that they would have earning it themselves.
Mm.
I didn't want to be the parent that would rob them of that self-esteem that they are going to receive from. And I said, how do you know this stuff? And she said, because when I bought my first apartment, she said, I didn't have parents who gave me everything, and I have everything now. She said, I've been extremely, lucky in my life that everything that I have put money into has come back to me. And she said, and when I got my first apartment, I remember dancing around in the living room and thinking to myself, this is mine. And I gave it to myself, and this is amazing. And she said, if I had parents who'd given me everything, I would never know the feeling of being able to do that, of giving it to myself and feeling so powerful in myself that I was able to achieve that. And so what I think about what you were talking about with your daughter, you gave her a gift to be there for you. She
Mm.
was able to give you something as a child of yours that you couldn't give yourself. So
Yeah.
you gave her a gift of being selfless in that moment, even when she was scared, because you're her mum and you're supposed to be the one who's there for her all the time.
Yeah.
If we look
Yeah.
at it in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she was able to be there for you, and you gave her that gift of knowing what it feels like to be there for another human being who's in distress.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as a mother, I wouldn't look at it like that.
Mm.
As a mother, I would be thinking to myself, I've traumatized my child. What have I done to my kid? Like I'm
Mm.
supposed to be the one who's there for them. So this woman who came in to my work and told me this story, I saw her as an angel because she gave me perspective in the way I'm raising my kids. Because unbeknownst to me, if I had the money, I'd be giving it to them
Yeah.
left, right, and center. I don't have that luxury. I can't do that. And so my children, I'm thinking to myself, the best I can do if I don't have the money to give them is to teach them how to be there for themselves so that they can earn their own money. That's the gift I'm giving them.
Same, same.
Yes.
Karen always goes on like, why are we so poor? And I'm like, you're rich in so many other ways. You know, you carry
Yes.
in your name, so you've just got to be able to see it for what it truly is, and it
That's right.
doesn't relate to money. Hmm.
I think if
Yes.
we flip the perspective of some people are so poor, all they have is money, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
And that
So true, Juliet.
yeah, I read that and I was like, wow. And I think as someone, um, well, I never look at my childhood as, um, I don't know. I always got what I want, what I wanted from, because I never wanted anything like big. Because when you're a kid, you don't really want anything. It's kind of, now when you're a bit older, that's like, oh, I want a car and I want a house and I want,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. But when I was a kid, all you want is like some toys and, this and that and the other. And I always got those things. And I remember even when I asked for maybe a more expensive thing, or when I started to want a new phone or something, um, you and
Mm.
dad always made it happen somehow. And I think that was that was always amazing to fall back on. But now as an adult, I see how the world works a bit more clearly. And yeah, that feeling of, buying, getting, getting here on, to the UK, or getting myself, when I booked my yoga teacher training in Bali, that was all my own money. And that is really, really true. And I feel even great. I feel more grateful for myself, more empowered as a human
Yeah.
being, knowing that, um, I can give myself whatever I want, because, I've been able to give myself. I dreamed of being a yoga teacher when I was 16, and then I was able to buy myself that training, and now I'm trained as a yoga teacher. And I wanted to travel New Zealand, and then I was able to give myself that, and I got to do it with two
Mhm.
best friends. And now I wanted to go to the UK, and so I've figured that out. And I think, yeah, that statement of, I would never rob my kids of the feeling and the knowing of what it feels like to do it yourself and to get yourself there. And that is a really, I don't know, I think that's a really important thing that parents need to look at. I was actually having a discussion the other day with a mum, and she was saying how she coddles her kids too much, but she loves it. And um she loves doing it. She just wants to be a mum. She just wants to take care of them. And they're adults now. They're like 25, or I don't know. Yeah, they're 25 and they're in their 20s, both of them. And but she loves to cuddle them. And I brought up, like, randomly, I didn't, this was not a direct rebuttal against her or anything, but I brought up in conversation naturally how I was raised with you, mum, who, I don't know, you and dad were always very supportive of anything I wanted to do, any dream, anything I wanted to wear that was crazy, any dream I had, anything that seemed impossible. You guys were like, okay, go do it. But it was, you go do it. Or if I wanted
Yeah.
something, once I had a job, it was like, okay, now you buy your clothes. Or, you want that piece of clothing, okay, you buy it. And at the time I was like, oh, shouldn't have gotten a job, because now I have to do it all myself. But I see the
Love that.
value in that now, because you always helped me. I always had your support. I could always call you if I got myself in trouble. I always had you guys to fall back on.
Hmm.
But I was out there by myself. Maybe there was a little rope tying me back to you, but I was there by myself doing it. I was, yeah, ever since I was young. So I think that was the building blocks that really helped me build the courage to know, oh, I want to go travel. I want to go travel by myself. And I know that I could do that because I grew up doing things by myself, you know?
Yep.
So, yeah,
Yeah, so true. And I never looked at it that way. Like this is the way I was raising you, but I didn't
yeah,
didn't look at it as though I'm handing you your power. I didn't see
yeah,
it like that. I was like,
yeah,
well, you are earning your own money, and so, it just makes sense for you to buy it for yourself.
yeah.
And maybe it was a deep,
And it does.
yeah,
It
and
is really as simple as that.
maybe there was a deep knowing in me that because I started working when I was very young. I was 13, I think, 12 or 13 when I started officially working. I was working with my dad in the fruit shop since I was 8. And so, and he would give me, little bits of pocket money and stuff for me to go and buy my lollies or whatever. But I started working officially. I had my first job when I was 12 or 13 in a kitchen. I was a kitchen aide and a kitchen hand, sorry. And then from that, I had my own money and I was buying things for myself that I really wanted. And my dad would supplement me if I didn't have enough. So that's what I was doing for you. I was just doing what I knew.
Yeah,
It was the way I was raised. And I felt that I came out of that situation. Like I bought my own house, I paid for my own wedding. Like, I had means to do those things because I feel like the way I was raised helped me to do that. And so I
yeah,
wanted that for you. So in a kind of default roundabout way, I was I was doing that. But when this woman explained it the way she did, it hit me like a lightning bolt. It was like, yes, I want that for my kids, like, and so now I have gusto with the idea of it because I see now the gift. And that is a personal gift to myself that I can see that. That's a beautiful thing for me as a mum to know that that's what I'm giving you. And that's taken away some of the guilt and the shame that I was feeling around it because I was feeling like, gosh, if I had hundreds of thousands of dollars, I would be paying for everything. And she was like, oh no. This woman was like, no, 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 no. Because she could do that if she wanted to, and she chose not to. And she told me the reasons why. And I was like, yes, that opens up so much scope.
It really does.
It's so beautiful to think that as a parent, where by not interfering, and I had that in my head because Juliet, like I've been told many times by other people, interfering in your children's lives is like meddling and it's not healthy for them. And I never really understood that, not deeply.
mm,
I didn't really get it because as a parent, there's this feeling of I wanted my children to know what it feels like to have things and to be, you know, I don't know, free with their money but that's not necessarily a good thing.
mm, yeah,
Yeah, it's not necessarily a good thing.
no,
No, traps you
And
more into the programming and the looping of all what this matrixy type of world is, isn't it, really? It just
mm,
yes.
into that, doesn't it?
yeah, I
Yeah, good point.
think this world is, it's so strange. It's such a weird place, and the matrix is everywhere. And, what is this thing called money that we have to go, go to a job and earn money to then be able to buy the things that we need to live, and then, the world is already complicated enough. And I think, you know, bringing up kids in today's world it's confusing for anyone, let alone a kid, to wrap their head around, what it is. And it's, I think by, doing the things that you did, Rachel, and letting your kid have a little adult moment, like, not that it was an adult moment, but just like that big learning moment of, like, because that is a massive lesson, to be able to hold space for someone else. And
Yes.
it is a really hard, I guess, I don't want to say lesson, but it's a difficult thing for a lot of people.
It's
But
more like a rite of passage.
yes, and it needs to happen. And I think it's important as well, as um a mum, to let your daughter see that you do need that, that you're
Mm.
that you do also need that,
Yeah.
because I don't know, you're still a human. And I think, as me growing up with you, mum, sometimes I thought you were perfect.
Yeah,
As a
I know
kid,
you've told me this.
I just thought you were perfect. And I would always look at adults and think, oh, they know what they're doing. And
Mm.
it wasn't until I turned 20 where I was like, oh, no, we don't. No, adults don't know anything. Kids know more than us most of the time. And it's kind of like,
Yes.
you know, so I think um, it was a really valuable, empowering thing that you did for yourself, but also for your daughter. And yeah, I hope that you, yeah, feel that and know that, because
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think just to allow myself to be held, because I hadn't allowed it for most of my life, and especially
Mm.
if I did need it and it wasn't there. So, um, yeah, it's big stuff we're all moving through day by day.
Yeah.
It's all,
Yeah.
and learning those, like we as we started off, learning those boundaries. And those boundaries aren't always about not agreeing to an invitation. It's those boundaries also affect, where we put our energy and what energy leaks that we allow to be taken from us, with not even realizing, just by looking at something, agreeing to look at something or speak to something, that affects our energetic boundaries. That, there's a lot of people that aren't even aware of that leak out all over the place and wonder why they're constantly exhausted, because I was one of those people. So
Yeah, me
um,
too.
learning to shore up all of those, and that's shoring up. It's a Navy term that, when there's a leak in the ship, you're going up and you're shoring up to stop the leaks from coming in. So we're learning to shore up our energy, on so many levels,
Mm.
to learn to be, we're learning to be whole again. And I think we're remembering to be whole again, because we come in whole and then we're fractured and then layered upon, and we're molded into all sorts of different things. And so we're learning to bring that wholeness back into ourselves. And that's a
Yeah,
beautiful journey.
I want to talk to that piece that you've just mentioned there, because I think that's important to stop and talk about for a few minutes, is the remembering, and to know that we are already whole. We came into this world whole, and then layers were laid upon us, on top of us, layers and layers and layers. And we often talk about those layers as being like the layers of an onion, and we need to peel them back. And I think the analogy is kind of one-sided in a way, because I think the onion is more like sheets on a bed. It's like we came into this world already whole, and then over time we forget it, and those, what I call, programs are laid upon us. And we buy into these programs because our parents have bought into them.
Mm,
We're raised we're raised in, a world where it's already churning when we are born into it. It's already churning. It's already got its own systems in place. And depending on the decade that you're born into, there's stuff happening in that time in the world, and you're born into that time. So it's like a river already running, it's already going, and you're born into that current, and then you go with it.
Yeah.
And, you know, over the years of that, we forget. We do forget because we've got these tasks that we need to do. We need to walk, we need to talk, we need to um, go to school, we need to get a job, we need to get married, we need to get a house, like all these expectations. And along with all of this current that's happening, we are forgetting more and more who we are, who we were born as, the person, the perfection that we were born as. And then we've got, our friends, our family, the media telling us things. And so over the years we forget more and more and more. And I think it's important to stop at some point and go, okay, now I need to remember, and I think that's self-awareness. Things will happen to us, like, people die. My dad died. That was a huge wake-up call for me. Things happen to us on that journey, and they're there to wake us up. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
And then we can say, okay, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to take stock of my life, and I'm going to actually look at why this pattern is happening in my life, or why these things keep coming to me. Or we can decide to ignore it and keep going and keep being miserable and keep on that path of self-destruction or whatever it is. And that's the choice point that we were talking about comes into play, the choices that we make. And when my dad died, I chose to stop and look at my life, because there were things happening that were not great and weren't in alignment with who I wanted to be as a person. And I was blaming everybody else. And I was saying, well, that person did this to me and that person did that to me. Couldn't see how I was the common denominator in the story and how all these things were orbiting me. And so when I finally said, okay, I'm the common denominator, these things are orbiting me. So if I change something about me, then the outside will change.
Yep.
And so I think that it's more than just peeling back the onion. It's more about seeing the layers that have been laid on us, the sheets that have come, and then working through getting those sheets and getting down to the core of who we are, and remembering, because none of us are broken, none of us are imperfect. We're all who we are. We are all born perfect people. And in doing that, we need to figure out a way to remember. So whatever that looks like for us. And what I've learned is that remembering, creating an environment to remember looks different for everyone. For me, it's having peace. It's being on my own to think and to feel things and to understand myself and the feelings that I'm having. And the way that I can do that is through music. So music is a huge one. I've switched off the radio because the radio was grating on me. So I don't listen to the radio anymore. I have my music in my car so that I get to choose what I listen to in my car. I have a speaker and everything that I use in my car. So music is one for me. Food is another one. So when I'm eating food, I'm blessing my food. I'm enjoying my food. I'm grateful for my food. I have a gratitude practice that every day I'm in my Facebook group on Facebook, and we do a gratitude practice every day. And I'm learning more and more these practices that I can do in my life to help me remember and to help me be in harmony with myself. And when I'm in harmony, then the fear is distant. And the fear is one of those layers, right? And it's a pretty thick layer that keeps trying to come into my life and steal my joy and steal, the remembering that I'm perfect and everything is the way it should be. And I start to get in my head instead of being in my heart. I get in my head, and then the cogs start churning, and then the boat starts rocking, and I'm not happy anymore. And
Yeah.
so I've started to notice these things, and I've started to slowly but surely unpick the layers and get rid of them and see them for what they are. And then in doing that, it's all connected, right? In doing that, then I see my choices more clearly. I see the choices in front of me a lot more clearly. So, like when this woman comes into my work and tells me this thing, I have ears to hear and
Yeah.
a heart to feel, and so when she's telling me something, it gets in. It gets
Yeah.
in there, and I go, wow, that was an angel coming to tell me a story that was really going to help me. And
Yeah.
because I have these practices in my life, the music and you know, um, the conversations and all the beautiful things that I'm having that are taking this fear away, then I have the wherewithal and the space to listen to these messages when they come in, and they help me to know that I'm on the right path.
Mm.
And because I'm not watching television anymore, I'm not listening to the radio anymore. I have space in my body and in my feelings and in my life. And I think that's really important for personal empowerment and boundaries, is that we say no to things that are keeping those spaces within us filled with fear.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's important, because I've got friends who are like, you don't watch the news. Why, how can you not watch the news? And I'm like, well, no, I don't want to watch the news because that makes me scared, fills me with fear. But you
Yeah.
don't know what's going on in the world. And I'm like, well, I do. The news isn't the only
That's right.
source that we can use to know what's happening in the world. And also, what's happening in the world, some of it's none of my business.
You're
Yeah.
creating your own world, and you don't want that to be a part of your world. So we let
Exactly
that
the
go.
point.
Mhm.
Exactly the point. And if I'm looking around my immediate environment and I see peace and I see the sun shining and I see the trees swaying in the wind and I see the flowers coming up to greet me because it's springtime now, why am I scared? Why am I
Yeah.
feeling full of fear? Because of something that's happening halfway around the world. I feel for those people because I'm a human being, right? I feel for those people. I do. And I will, if I get an opportunity to help those people, I would take that opportunity because that's who I am as a person. But sitting in my lounge room and feeling fear and feeling like, oh my God, there's all this stuff in the world that's going wrong is not helping anybody.
Mm.
It's just creating fear in my life and depression in my life, that I'm going to be walking around and not being able to smile at the stranger that walks past me in the supermarket because I'm so full of fear. Like, for example, the other day,
Sorry.
you're right, darling. I go and I volunteer for a charity every Wednesday. And the places I have to go to pick up because I pick up food that's it would go in the bin if I didn't go and pick it up. So these places that I'm picking the food up from are like the dock area of the supermarket. And some of these docks are like you are going into the bowels of hell. You're driving down into the dock and it's dark and dingy and horrible. And I walked past a gentleman that was delivering something on the dock, And I smiled at him. And he said to me, why are you so happy today? And I said, well, look at where we are. If I don't bring a little bit of sunshine, no sunshine comes in here.
Yeah.
And he was like,
Wow.
oh, that's so true. He said, that's so true. We have to bring the sunshine ourselves. And I said, yeah, we do have to bring the sunshine ourselves, because in this place, down underneath a big, huge high-rise building and shopping
Mm.
center, there is no windows. There's no light that gets in. And he said, do you know why? This is what he said to me. He said, do you know why it looks like this down here? And then you go up top inside the shopping center and it looks like that. And I said, because of the companies that own these places make those decisions. And he said, yeah, because they make money up there. They're not making money down here.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, he's
So,
got like, yeah, he's got the insight, like he understands it too. I'm not the only one that sees this stuff. And having that little interaction with him was a choice.
mhm.
That was a choice, because I could have walked around miserable because of the place I was in. It was dark and dingy and horrible, but I chose to smile at someone because I had my music in my life, because I wasn't listening to the radio. I'm not listening to the television. I'm not feeling afraid because I look around me and I see that there's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah.
And so I have the capacity to smile and have those interactions with people.
Wow. Well, Mum, I think that's a good place to end it. We've gone like 15 minutes over.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Almost. Yeah. So I think that's a good place to end it.
Yeah.
Um, but thank you, Rachel. I first of all, thanks, Mum, for that. I was listening, just yeah, love listening to you talk and about your little stories of your life.
Thanks,
And
Bobby.
and um thank you, Rachel, for coming on again. And once again, thank you for being such a constant star
Mm.
in our sky here in She's of Love. And um, I don't know, you're the oldest and wisest among them. I don't know, I just look back at the very early days of She's of Love and reading your
Old as
comments.
in a guest on our show, not as in age.
Yes, that's what I meant. Sorry. I meant
Totally
like,
understand.
God. Oh God. I gotta end it now. But
One of the
one of
OGs.
one of the OGs, the
Yeah.
originals.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just remember always reading your comments and being filled with joy. And
Yes.
I remember that first episode and how different we all were and how far we've come. So
Yeah.
thank
So
you.
true.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You have a beautiful night's sleep there, Juliet, on the other
Yeah.
side of the.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you both as always. I love our conversations. I love our exchanges.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all of the work that you're doing, because like I said, I learn something about myself each and every day when I do tune in.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I thank you everybody for watching, and there's a lot of exciting things coming to She's of Love. So stay tuned. There's a
Mm.
whole new logo. I've been working on it for weeks at this point. So yeah, a lot of exciting stuff, and we'll see you next week. So thanks for watching.
See ya.